Hey, you cool cats. I was just dealing with some technical difficulties, but I believe we're up and running. Let me just check audio right quick, as I will probably do every time. Just because of too many instances where the audio, we'll just say messed with me. Slash us. Just dealing with some technical difficulties, but I believe we're up and running. Let me just check audio right quick. Y'all can't hear the music at all, can you? Just because of too many instances where the audio, just say messed with me. Slash us. Is that better? Y'all can't hear the music at all, can you? Okay, we'll leave it there. If you end up needing to hear the music more, I can turn it up more. Just let me know. Ah, for crying out loud. Pencil timed out, of course. Which means that's going to need to catch up now. It's always something. If it's not something, it's two things. All right? Right. Okay, there we go. So welcome back. Return to art session part 2. I wasn't just hungry the other day. If you caught the last one, um, I got a little shaky hungry. Turns out I wasn't just hungry. I was sick. By the end of that day, I had a pretty bad sinus infection. Um, yeah, wasn't pretty. And I'd been doing a lot of yard work. I still got out and did yard work the last couple of days as well, just because I had a couple of gardens I got to put in. So I got a rosemary garden put in. I got a cilantro garden put in. I moved a maple tree. It's not a very big one. It's like 6 foot, like a 6 foot maple tree. Moved that. Yeah, with a sinus infection. But I'm getting a nice tan, right? So the memo that you should be taking from all that is don't be like me. Okay. You can also see that I went ahead and I did the line art that I told you I was going to do, but I did not touch it up because I told you we'd do that together. So I'm going to say my goal. I'm not going to promise because me being me, if I promise and something happens, like power goes out, internet goes out, I get sick, what have you, and I don't do it, I'm going to feel really shitty. Um, so I'm going to say my goal is to do these every day, 5 days a week. I'm just going to try and treat it like a job because I need that also. I need the discipline. So I'm going to try and do these 10 o'clock, um, God willing, 10 o'clock central art sessions, Procreate lessons, little fellowship videos or live streams, not videos, on a schedule. So we need to get that going. I need to get that going for multiple reasons, and maybe you can get something out of it. So and you'll have to forgive the shortness of breath, sinus infection. Um, today's top five, I'm just going to do authors. It's a broad category. And since I started reading at a very young age, I think first grade is when I really, really got into reading. And therefore, authors is kind of a big thing. But I wanted, since the other one was kind of a short topic, I wanted a broad topic. And we're gonna go over um, defining the line art, detailing line art. This is what I call my detailing phase. So when I do a piece, unless it's like landscape, if I do a piece, it's usually got a rough sketch phase, which is like the character development phase. Then it's got a line art phase. And I have a second line art phase, which is, I call it my detailing phase. That's when I take my time, I make my broader lining. I fix little things like his left shoulder. You'll notice it's pretty bad. We got to fix that. Um, and add details that I hadn't thought of before or didn't put in before. Yeah. And then the phase after that is going to be the coloring and lighting and shading. Honestly, coloring and lighting and shading doesn't really take as much time as the others. You would think that that's the one that takes the most time, but it is not. Once you get the line art done, it's pretty quick, and you can sit back and have more fun with it. Okay, so we made it through character creation. Um, a lot of times, especially if you're having to do your reference material, it's kind of like with writing too. If you're having to do reference material, that takes a long ass time. Character development takes a long time. So we got past that. We got past line art, or I did that on my own. Um, yeah, and now we're at the detailing phase. So like I said, that shoulder's got to go. Some of the tatters you'll notice probably need to look more three-dimensional. Um, and then we can add stuff, like I said, that hadn't been thought about before. So while I'm doing this, if you have ideas that you think would look cool, you can just throw them up, and I'll see if it works and if we can throw them in. Yeah, let's get started. Okay, so pencil timed out again. That frickin' figures. Oh well. Okay, so if I do it fast enough. All right, cool. So ever since one of the iOS updates, these pencils, that is the wrong brush. Calligraphy. Ever since one of the iOS updates, the pencil has been really tricky. And let me tell you, I have looked all over for various means to fix it and found none. While I'm doing these tatters, something something you don't really see much artists talk about, and I mean honestly, you don't see them think about it much, is texture, material. So when I'm doing clothing, it is very hard for me to not get stuck on what material they're using because different material is going to, I mean, it's going to give a different luster. It's going to it's going to have a different tatter effect. It's going to fold differently. So most of the time when you're watching these, how to draw videos, they don't really cover that. And this isn't me saying you only hear it here. I'm not saying you only hear it here. I'm just saying if I personally have watched 20 different, you know, how-to artists showing how they do stuff, not once have I seen one talk about material. And that includes the greats. Love Jim Lee, not griping about Jim Lee whatsoever. But every time Jim Lee draws a cape, it's all made out of like Teflon. You know what I mean? It's just not the way things are. And that's also not to say that I don't go 100% realistic. Part of art is knowing when to cut corners. Um, Ergo, cutting realism. So if you're an illustrator, I think I mentioned this in the last video, live stream. If you're an illustrator, a lot of what you're doing is figuring out where you can cut corners and where you can't. I tend not to cut corners on material. To me personally, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around, or not wrapping my head around materials, I suppose. And like I said last time, the goal here is not for you to draw like me, to have my style, to do things the way I do. The goal with these videos is going to be a little bit of fellowship, and also sharing my Procreate expertise, because I've been doing Procreate for years now, and I know a lot of little tricks. And some of them I wish I had known, years ago. Okay. I think we can probably get away with that as far as the tatters go. A lot of that stuff's going to lose its detail when this shrinks, because it's going to shrink a lot. That shoulder's got to go, though, doesn't it? That shoulder is bad. Just blame that on me being sick. Let's see if we can just liquefy that. That's about right. Rather than doing a whole other line, sometimes you can just poke it and prod it. And now see, his left shoulder is more what I wanted intentionally, and the left one is kind of not what I wanted intentionally. Let's see if we can make a match. Got that star to deal with too. Okay. All right. I gotta tell you, maybe I need to hear the music today. Well, it doesn't sound like y'all hear the music at all. Hmm. That's interesting. That is not what I hit. Oh, there it is. It's just very faint. All right. Let me know if it gets too loud. Okay. So shoulders fixed. The tatters are pretty much fixed. I think now we just choose some lines to darken. So there's a couple ways to go with this. A general outlook nowadays is you just outline. Your darker lines are say for the outlines of characters, and it separates them from other characters and from not important parts. It's a way to pull out certain art. So we could just do the typical 2026. That's an eraser. We could just do the 2026 typical darker outlines and go all around him. That's what you see, like Rake does that. It's really just the norm nowadays. But it's not generally what I do. I usually do comic style where the lines get darker because of shading, or because of, even though I do mountain shading, or because of perspective, fever, brain fog. But Yeah, a lot of artists just do the outline. Keeps it simple. Ta-da. Now later on, we're going to decide how much color outlines we want, or color we want. Since he's got, yeah, that's not a bad idea since he's got all those hoses. But anyway, we'll decide later on whether we do some colored lines. I probably will. That is a nice way to pull stuff out. It's one of my favorites. Other than shading, I mean, it's just little art tricks. Other than shading, you can pull things forward with your lines, especially if you do color lines, just some color lines, not all color lines. Coloring all your lines makes it more realistic, but coloring certain lines draws it out. I'm kind of committed to this now, so. This is probably the point where I get quiet again, so I'll start talking about authors unless questions come up. I probably know who my number one is. They didn't have many writings, at least not that we're aware of, but was probably the most impactful for me. My number one is probably going to be Homer. I became fascinated with Homer, I think in second grade. Uh, just fell in love with Homer and still reread Homer every once in a while. And that's I mean, that's a matter of content as well as, form, as well as uh, descriptive writing style. So, or lyrical, I guess descriptive versus lyrical writing styles. Um, and I'm not talking about just hexameter, iambic pentameter. I'm talking about like literally how things flow, yes, but also how they're described. Uh, like one of my top five will also be Tolkien, and Tolkien could spend 2 pages describing a tree. But that fucker was also a linguist, so that's understandable. Understandable. Yeah, I just loved the subject matter of Homer as well as the style. Um, I grew up in a I say grew up, they're still around. I grew up in a very, very staunch Southern Baptist indoctrination. So Homer was one of the things that made me go, well, that doesn't really fit with everything I'm told, um, and question everything. And he really portrayed the pantheon as important, but also tied to human perception. It's kind of a big deal. I won't get on a lesson on theology today. We'll save that for some other time. But Homer kind of me, made me me. So that's probably my number one. And my inclination is to say that my number two is Anne Rice. If you've never read Anne Rice, my God, I can't just say pick up Homer and read Homer and you'll love Homer, because honest, the chances of you loving Homer are pretty slim. But I can say you should read Anne Rice. Um, I was super sad when she passed. She she's got such an open mind. Had her stuff. Her stuff has such a clear, open mind. I really think that she paved a lot of the road to the acceptance that we have today in 2026. I know that there's like 31% of us don't accept anything that's different than them, but there is a very akin to the 80s um, air of acceptance out there. The general person is pretty accepting of the next person unless they're a complete asshole. Whichever one I'm talking about there, you can leave it up to yourself which you think I'm talking about. And I think that Anne Rice does not get credited for that as much as she should. And that's with me not even liking Interview with the Vampire. I'm not a huge fan of Interview with the Vampire, the book. I remember reading it, and the movie came out as I was reading it, actually. Yeah, it did. So the movie came out as I was reading it, and then I picked up Vampire Lestat, and I'm like, oh, this is so much better. And Lestat was immediately making fun of Louis, which was my least favorite part of Interview with the Vampire, actually. Um, and so Lestat making fun of Louis really, and the book, kind of hooked me. I mean, that's the sign of a good book, right? It hooks you quickly. So Lestat's viewpoint on Louis being the same as mine, um, probably Anne Rice in a very Nietzsche-like retrospective. That really hooked me to the whole series, honestly. But mostly Lestat hooked me onto the series. The Mayfair Witches are cool, but it's all about Lestat, if we're honest. Louis is not cool. Louis is a whiny baby. Um, he's the I'll always find something to frown about guy, where Lestat is the I'll always find something to smile about guy. That and Lestat is, the anti-hero slash tragic villain. He would probably say he's a tragic villain, but he ends up being an anti-hero a lot. And more than anything, Lestat remained Lestat. I think that was the best thing about Lestat. He never faltered from being himself. And boy, is that rare. Rare, rare, rare. So let me draw back, and we'll go ahead. I'm pretty sure that's going to be my top 1 and 2. First 2 are probably simple, and they get really complicated thereafter. While I'm doing this, I should also point out, I didn't think about this earlier when giving my reasons for darker lines, but one thing to think about when you do darker lines is magnification. So since this is going to shrink a lot, the lines that we're making dark are the ones that you want to be seen more obviously. So like these 2 little tatters that I'm working on there, see what I mean? And since they're so small, I can't really get every side of them. So just hit one side, and they're probably just going to look like a blob when they get really small, but whatever. And here's a good example of where to cut corners. When I say cut corners, I'm not talking about cheating as an illustrator. What I'm talking about is when you're illustrating, you're not realistic. at least not completely. That is not your focus. When you're an illustrator, your point is to you really want to solidify your style in how it's not realistic. So like typically if you're looking at this cable, this cord, all those segments, you know, I've got this straight line there, right? This this line right here. So I've got this really straight, really smooth for a broken, busted hand line. But in all reality, it should be segmented as well. The line should, I mean, it should be segmented here. It should be segmented there. But we didn't do that because we're illustrating. So you got to choose what it is. It's not realistic. Um, my particular style, everybody, well, not everybody, most people that describe my style, they describe it as kind of a mixture between Disney and anime, which is just a reflection of my main influences. But I like to think of my style as I typically call it Saturday morning style, Saturday morning cartoon style, which shows my age because I'm old. Um, but that's really the feel that I want to give off. So when I'm doing backgrounds, my backgrounds don't have line art for the most part. Sometimes they do. If somebody pays me a lot for like a pin up with detailed backgrounds, of course it might have lines and such. But typically my backgrounds are going to reflect the backgrounds that you'll see in a Bakshi film or Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Uh, Rankin Bass. Rankin Bass is definitely one of my heavier influences. Oh yeah, and I did go back. You heard me talking about it. I did go back and I fixed the nails. See? See? More uncanny valley than bestial. Rather, I didn't go back and fix that. I didn't cheat on you. I still did what I said. I saved all the detailing. I didn't go back and fix them. When I did the line art, I just did them more natural. That's all I mean. All right, Homer and Rice. Tolkien's going to be in the top five, I'm sure. Let me tell you, I used to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy every year. Don't ask me what happened because I don't even know. I just stopped reading it every year. Life, family, maybe? I guess it did stop around the time I got married. A little darker, a little darker. I keep saying darker. You're probably smart enough to figure out that it's not actually darker, it's thicker. Um, I just get caught up in the lingo. Giving realism its due, they're thicker lines, not darker lines. In fact, this is as dark as you can get on the color chart. Certain layer types won't even affect this because it's so dark. Who else do I like? I like Rudyard Kipling. I like Howard, Robert E. Howard. Poor guy. Um, Man, I like Max Brooks. He doesn't do much, but let me tell you, World War Z reminded me a lot of Dracula, and Dracula is still my favorite book of all time. Which probably means I should put Bram Stoker up there, right? Dracula was just so unique. It's just not. It's not like any other book until World War Z came along. I know that there's some people that tried to mimic it, but when you can tell somebody's mimicking something, it doesn't feel the same. It's probably what makes a good cover song a good cover song when it's the right combination of theirs and yours, right? Which is just one reason why Joan Jett is queen, the goddess of rock. Yeah, I don't think Kipling's going to make my top five. Oh, we got to fix that chastity belt. Or detail it, rather. I don't think Max Brooks is going to make my top five. Maybe. I guess if I put Bram Stoker in there, I could put Max Brooks in there. Neither of them have too much under their belt. I like Lovecraft a lot. Lovecraft is probably going to be in my top five. Yeah. So thing about Lovecraft, yes, you're probably hearing Lovecraft was racist. And I don't think it's racist as much as it is xenophobic. Um, he ended up being racist, not in like hate him, kill him, separate him way. He was literally scared. So I don't think it was racist, actually. I think it was just xenophobic because of how he was brought up. And if you want to view that as me defending him, you can, because that's exactly what I'm doing. It's not me defending racism. It's me saying I don't think that was racism. I think that was xenophobia. Does that mean that there's some people today that are acting racist that are really xenophobic? Yeah, probably. Not most of them. Racism is racism. Xenophobia is xenophobia. I think that Lovecraft was xenophobic. I think most people just talk about shit they don't know anything about. Like there was that whole war a few years back about Abraham Lincoln saying that black people should go back to Africa. That's not quite what he said, kinda. And the reason he said it is because he thought that they'd be safer. I read a couple. There are a couple of good books on him by good authors. Yeah, I don't think they'd be any of my favorites. And there's Dumois. I love Dumois. I might put Dumois in there just because nobody gets him right. Alexander Dumois, the guy who wrote Three Musketeers. My God, I'm probably going to put Dumois is probably in my top five. Yeah, he's probably going to be in my top five. The I got to tell you the biggest reason to love Alexander Dumois is because nobody can get him right. I've seen every iteration there is of the Three Musketeers now. None of them follow the book. There are parts of the book that different versions follow, but every single version departs somewhere, and some more than others. Of course, the Anderson Three Musketeers was hokey as shit, but I mean, even it got certain things right that others didn't. It's crazy. Three Musketeers just blows my mind in the medium, in the different mediums, excuse me. I don't understand how no one can follow that book. Even the French. The newish with Ava Green French films. Dude, Castile playing, Athos was perfect. Castile playing Athos is fantastic. But what he had to work with, they just added so much crazy shit, and I don't even know why. 2026 is the perfect time to put out a good, let's do a little curl here, is the perfect time to put out a good adaptation of Three Musketeers without worrying about the ideas. Having done that curl, I like that curl. I want to do more of them now. I think I'm gonna. That's not quite what I want. More of a curl. Yeah, that looks cool. Put one back. See, and that's why we have a detailing phase. That right there. And on the subject matter of Dumois that I raised prior, it's a pretty common issue. It's not just Dumois. It's also Tolkien. If you're a Tolkien fan, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a Tolkien fan, not Lord of the Rings film fan, you know what I'm talking about. Like, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring is one of my favorite films. But I don't understand, loving it as I do, why they would take a part out from the book and put it in another film, but take a part from another film and put it into that. I don't understand that. Love you, Peter Jackson. Love you. Frighteners is the shit, yo. But I don't understand that. And then there are some of them that I do understand, but don't agree with. Taking Elrond and Gandalf's credit for the river and the horses. I don't understand that. Giving it to Arwen. Oh, now I understand that. Because Tolkien's books did not give much credit to females that weren't named Eowyn. So I get it. I don't agree with it. I don't. It's not. It doesn't mean that an author in the early 20th century not putting a bunch of chicks of power in his books doesn't mean he was sexist, and it doesn't mean that chicks aren't cool. Part of the books, if you didn't get it, was bromance. And the reason being, he spent a lot of time on the front line in a certain war. And he was the first to say that his band of brothers meant the world to him. It's the only reason he got out of it alive. They were the only reason that they got out alive, depending on each other. That's one of the whole points behind the books. So I don't get it. And this coming from a guy who kind of forces representation in the system that he works in. Every chance I get, I'm forcing more color and more sexual equality and uh, preference of preference of lifestyle in everything I do for people. So it's not that I'm not an ally, I am the ally. But if you're going to use someone else's shit, don't throw your own in it. Like Rings of Power, what the hell, man? What the hell? And the creators of Rings of Power, I mean, I watch them in interviews, and in interviews they admit, well, we wanted to make it our own. We want to do our own thing. I'm like, well, then do your own thing. Don't do Tolkien's thing. We didn't want to follow the books precisely. Then why? Why do it in the first place? And this conversation comes up a lot with people. Um, and eventually, inevitably, it leads to Batman. Because there's so much Batman shit. Just because he's probably the most well-known character in existence, right? And so everybody's wanting to redo Batman. And the more it happens, the further they get. Small disclaimer, Pattinson's Batman was actually really good. Very close to Batman. It really was Batman. I loved it. The spin where Batman was trying to learn how to be Bruce Wayne, loved that. That was brilliant. But Christopher Nolan's Batman films weren't even Batman. They weren't Batman. Name only. Slap the Batman name on something because it was already worth a lot of money. That's it. Nolan writes good stuff. He just should have wrote his own. Don't let me forget, we need to do a trim and collar. Some sort of, well, not both. We need to do some sort of trim. That's what we need to do. Don't let me forget. But yeah, the Nolan Batmans, they weren't Batman films. Nowadays, people just want to see a guy in a cape and cowl beat the shit out of people. It's not Batman. Batman's villains actually called him the detective. Christopher Nolan's Batman films didn't use a bit of detective work. In fact, he couldn't figure things out and had to cheat by tapping tapping everyone's phone. Oh, yes, sinus infection affects your throat. And all of that from Alexander Dumas. Yeah, this is why I'm not smoking my pipe today. Make your jokes. Oh, Marine Rise, Alexander Dumas. I should just go ahead and put Tolkien in there probably. Maybe because I just realized someone who will be in there for sure. The guy I love to hate or hate to love, both. He's so good, but he's so evil. Changing shit. Deaths for cool people. Shit. Timothy Zahn is good. Man, I used to read the hell out of Timothy Zahn. I can't think of the last time I read one of his novels though. Probably well over a decade. Oh, I didn't put Lovecraft in there, did I? I didn't. So I probably got my top five. I'll put this in there, but then I'm going to keep thinking about it. I want to put Tolkien in the top five, but if I'm honest, sometimes things are so bad that they leave a bad taste in your mouth. So like I can't read Tolkien now without thinking of fucking Orlando Bloom's X Games on fucking shields or barrels. Which is sad. Not happy about that. And I don't think it's old. I don't think that it's necessarily Jackson. I'm sure that there was some board meeting where some execs were saying, hey, you know, it'd be really cool. We love Orlando, and let's have him surf on a fucking shield. Used to be my favorite character in the books. Used to be my favorite. For shame. After the films, Aragorn's probably my favorite character. They ruined Gimli, because Gimli in the books was not comedy relief. I mean, they all had comedy moments, right? But Gimli was not fucking comedy relief. That sucker going into the challenge that he and Legolas had. No, it was more of a worry who was going to win that. I mean, they made all the dwarves into jokes, which I was not a fan of. Having them actually go into the mountain in The Hobbit was like the worst thing you could do. Made Bilbo completely useless. Like, why the hell have Bilbo if the dwarves are going to go on the mountain? I didn't plan for this topic to end up the way it has. Clearly, I have a great respect for creators, and I don't think that their shit should be changed much. I can think of an example where that's not the case. I remember seeing the Watchmen film in theaters after having read the comic books. And I was just about to say I didn't put any comic book writers in there, but Dan Abnett is also a comic book writer, so I'm covered. Oh, though Chris Claremont. Mm, that's tough. I might have to. I might have to replace Dumois with Chris Claremont. Let me think on that a while. What was I saying? Watchmen. So I remember seeing Watchmen in the theaters, the movie, and got to the end, and I'm like, what the hell? And I was seeing it with my wife at the time, the boy's mom, and she's like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, they changed the ending. She's like, well, what did they change? And so I explained to her what they changed. She's like, oh, well, I'm glad they changed that. I'm like, why? Why are you glad they changed that? She's like, well, this way makes a lot more sense. And so I started thinking about it, and I think she's right. I think the original ending to the book would have confused the hell out of people that didn't grow up during the Cold War. And just wouldn't, it would have been just way out of left field. So I think she's right. I can understand changing that. Things like, regardless of what Stan Lee says, things like giving Peter Parker webs that are biological versus him being smart enough to design something that no one else can, not a fan of. But Stan spoke. Stan Lee spoke on that, so it doesn't matter what I think. He liked it. It doesn't matter what I think. I just think the point should always be to credit the creator. Nowadays, it's just all about almighty dollar. We want this because it's already got this following, this monetary value to it. Nothing else matters. Again, if you got any questions about what I'm doing, lay them on me, or how to do stuff. That's what this is for. Like the reason I'm putting these lines here is because this is going to be a change in material. Like I was talking about earlier. These spiky bits are going to be, turning into metal. So I'm knowing what's coming, and I'm preparing for it. And this generally has to be done in comic book art as well. The job of the inker is to interpret, and the job of the sketchist is to, that's a good word, lead, maybe? Signify? Signify is pretty good. So if somebody else was following me up and doing the coloring for me, I'd need to let them know what's a different material. And some of this is just mutation as well. So it's really, more than anything, it's just a reminder to myself later on. Like, oh, this is going to be metal. That's right. I don't know why I'm British now. Because I've got a fever fog. So here's a good example of an area to put thicker lines for shading. So I usually, when I'm doing something and the lighting is not obvious, I default to top left lighting. So stuff like this here, you can do things like that to denote where the lighting is coming from. See what I mean? Now, since I'm doing my own coloring, I don't do that too much, mind you. But since I talked about it, I wanted to show it to you. And sometimes I'll put veins in for dramatic flair, like that. Unless they just shouldn't have any muscle tone. Like, honestly, this guy probably shouldn't have much muscle tone. Maybe not the best circulation. I'm not super worried about those lines because I'm thinking about some little special effects to do in the coloring phase, but we'll still give them a little attention. I can do special effects around that. You also want to try to close all your lines where it's feasible. And the reason for that is for the reference that I will talk about later. So that's why I'm closing them like I am. Closed line. Which is not clothesline. Closed line. Why did I sound like Paul Rudd? Oh, that was horrible. Let's try that again. See what I mean here? Without the little segments in the outer line. It's kind of weird looking, isn't it? But like in an anime, they'd probably not even give that much attention to it. A little bit line here and there, that's about it. Oh, it's chastity belt. And no, I get it. It's not really a chastity belt. I'm just being funny-ish. Goodness, my phone is just blowing up. Okay. No, not that one. We'll do this one a little darker. We'll do this one a little darker. Hell, I kind of just want to close that in. Yeah, we'll do it. Why not? I don't do that often, get ahead of the coloring. Most of the time I will use the colors for that shit. But sometimes it just looks good to make it black. Especially knowing that some layer types just don't pick black up. Okay. Like here, that's a shading thing. That's a shading line. Shading line there. Shading line here. Probably shading line there. Okay. And then I need to decide how I want to do this. I think I wanted to, yeah, I did. So this is parted there. So we'll do like that. Again, trying to know where to cut the corners. That's not even at all. Do something. It's probably old tech too. So this is where the material comes in. So this is probably an old tech as well. So I've probably got it way too intact, if I'm being honest. But We'll deal with it. We'll do a little jagged metal every now and then. There. There. And then maybe some rivets, as Chaos is wont to do. But then on this side, let's make it a little different. So on this side, let's do make it a little non-symmetric and the reason being, so we can do something like this. And since all technology in the Imperium is like old, or Chaos also for that matter, give it like an old key look. I dig it. And that's funny. It's probably more orky than Chaos, but I don't care. It's funny. I don't have much by way of heraldry or anything, so let's do a little spiky bit where we can. Yeah, I dig it. So we can probably move on to colors. I'm going to rationalize that mostly with the fact that a lot of my reasoning for Alexander Dumas being in there was Three Musketeers. The book. But Chris Claremont also was responsible for a good portion of me, who I am, especially Nightcrawler. Okay. Wow, the lines are so small. I did them too detailed. Touch that up right quick. Sorry. My tease. Oh, I didn't get all those either. My goodness. Okay. Well, I didn't thicken that either. I'm old. Me forgetting shit is just a part of the process, too. Now we can move on to colors. So, I discussed referencing earlier. This is how you reference. So, you hit reference. That's it. You select your line, or you select your layer, and when you select your layer, you've got some options, and one of them is reference. And what reference does is, no matter where you go, so I'm going to go to this layer, and I'm going to pick, let's do skin color. That's an okay skin color, but let's do more of a gray skin color. Excuse me. And more pale, because this guy was dead once. And I just noticed an issue with his arm, but I'll fix it in a second. So you can then drag this over and drop it. Isn't it crazy? It's crazy, isn't it? So now for one, it's saved that color because I've used it. For two, you can go back and fix that shoulder. Okay. And then you can just continue that. So this does make the color phase a lot quicker. You just have to make sure that your lines are represented well before and after. I think we're good. I'm going fast, aren't I? Let me go back a little bit. Okay, we'll go back to there. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging and dropping. Okay, get off. I'm dragging and dropping, and then you'll notice in the middle it says you want to continue filling. You hit yes. You just click on it to hit yes. And then it says color drop. Yes, right there. Color drop. Yes, right there. Right there. If I'm honest, would I just colored those two things I just color dropped? I'm probably not going to keep that color, but I'll show you why I'm doing what I'm doing. Oh. So if you've got a broken line, or if you hit like an outer line, it will obviously go funky like that and tell you, hey, you missed, or it's not what you wanted. Oh, we forgot to do the trim, didn't we? It's the royal we. I forgot to do the trim. So let me do a quick trim. I'm just going to do a standard trim because nobody cares about his fucking coat anyway. Do you? No. No, you don't. So we'll tatter it. We'll tatter it at the bottom. And then we'll give him a standard trim. And if we decide, we can do some funky patterns on the coat anyway. So the trim and collar don't matter too much. And we can just use that line because collars will cause lines as well. And so the collar would both heap up here and it would also heighten there. So we'll use that. And I'm not talking about like a fluffy collar, I'm just talking about a trim collar. It's still a collar. Don't forget to check your size though. I think we're good. Oh, nope, not if I do that. That would be the busted hand I was talking about. That happens all the time. Okay. And you can put like little seams in it too, if you want. It's a nice little, oh, the collar is much bigger on that side, isn't it? Can fix that. So anyway, outfits have seams, so don't be afraid to put seams on it. I got that one started there. We'll just continue it. It goes into the fold on the other side. This one you can continue. Just go a little touch of realism. No to me. No to me. All right. And then we'll get back to color. So I think that's it for the skin though. Nope, not there. Fingers. I don't like this color at all. I think we're going to make it more gray. Finger. Okay, since I don't like that color, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this layer, like so. I'm going to put on color fill, which it's already on, bottom right there. And then I'm going to play with this. Oh, that's actually pretty good. That's pretty good. But let's do this. I like that a lot. We're going to do that. I like that color. That's his new skin color. And then let's do the robes. They're word bearers, so typically orangey red, like a rust red. Do I want to keep that? We'll start there. Might change that too, we'll see. Color fill, yes. That's what happens when you hit the line like I was talking about. So if I were to hit this part right here, it would fill in that portion of the collar, and I don't want that. So I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to save that and come back to it. And I can also see some spots that I missed the skin because I'm doing this. We'll come back to those. I just want to use the color fill while I've got it selected. Missed. Turn off color fill, get the little stuff. That's the first thing I was talking about earlier. You just fill that in. You don't use the color fill. Stuff that's too tight, you just do this way. Okay, I think that's all that. So while it's fresh in my mind, we're going to go back. We're going to select that color for the skin. And we're going to fill in those little spots right there. If you didn't see what I was filling in, it's those. Okay. And then the trim. Let's make the trim like a doll. I like that. Damn, missed a spot. Yeah. If I was to hit that, it would hit the whole thing. So that's going to have to be colored by hand again. And like I was saying in the first, like I was saying in the prior live stream, sometimes when I'm doing the coloring, I will just color by hand because it's just so stress relieving. Coloring is actually very stress relieving. And most people know that because, you know, adult coloring books are kind of a big market right now. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. And then we're going to do the metals. So there's a lot of different types of metals. My favorite colors for metals is right around there. So a slightly blue-gray, a slightly brown-gray. Those are my two favorite. For now, we'll use the slightly brown-gray. Did I get a new layer? I did, okay. So continue filling and then blap, blap. Blap, 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 blap. This is way too close to the skin color, isn't it? We'll fix it. Blap, 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 blap. This is also really close to Imperial Herald Gray, which is why I chose it. So we'll fix it some. One way or the other, we'll fix it. Looking at our time, we're probably going to have to make lighting and shading a third video for this guy. Oh, this should have been a chick. Why didn't y'all tell me to make this a girl? Oh, it should have been a girl. Oh, it's because we were saying guy in the... Yeah, we said he in the campaign, so... Oh well. Live and learn. It's funny, this new tablet is so sensitive, it can pick up the heat from my other hand very far from the screen. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that means it's good or means it's bad, but not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. But where's that? There's a little dot. There it was. Okay. Anyway, so my other hand on the pad, on the case even, it'll sometimes pick it up and cause confusion. It's so sensitive like me. And I missed that. We'll go ahead and get the wiring in here too. I missed that. I missed that the skin, that there was no closed. Where's the, oh, I see it. Yeah, little gap in the line art down there. When it gets to a certain lower pixelization, it just doesn't care. Like right there on that eye. See the skin there? There we go. And is that it for the metal? We'll go ahead and color in the rest of the fasteners. Oh my goodness. Wasn't there another spot of red? Oh, I know what it was. This spot right here between the ankles. I wanted red. Yep, yep, yep. All right, that's probably going to be red in that hole. That's going to be red in that hole. That should not be red in that hole. Okay. Missed some metal there. All right. So I tell you what, let's make this skin color, because that's very close to the Imperial Herald gray. It's probably right around there. Yeah. And then this, we'll do another color. I just really like that pale. We think that? That? The middle? We'll meet in the middle. I dig it. So now that we have our skin color, we can also do the nails. So there's two ways to do the nails on just about anybody. My goodness. I'm just making sure these people don't actually need me. What was I saying? Nails. Okay, so there's two ways to do nails on things. So bestial nails tend to be darker, um, darker nails. Like if you look at a dog, the nails are typically darker than the skin. I guess cats are exceptions, but most stuff the nails are going to be darker. On humans, they're usually a little lighter. So we got a choice to make on this guy. Um, there's also, dirt is a thing. I kind of want to make his nails darker. Since they look like advanced humanoid nails, let's just see. My worry is that it's going to make it look too bestial. Kind of does. So again, we can play with it. So that's probably the way to go there. So we'll leave it there for now. And then the eyes, what we can do for the eyes is we can fill them as a whole and then modify them as a layer. And you know what? That wasn't my original intent, but let's do that too. Because why not? Okay, then we'll be able to modify all the layers that are the eyes as a layer modification. Okay. So we need to hit his nips, and we need to hit his tear duct there. That looks good for the nip. And yes, totally. Probably would have had nips on the chick if we'd have done a chick. Okay, for the tear duct, you want to get... I don't want to make it too funky. A little paler maybe, since he's so pale. Looked like it was dead at one point. Dead for a couple of minutes. There we go. Oh, I didn't close off some of the wiring. Let's fix that. And then I need to color the wiring. Okay, now with 40K wiring, I tend to... Oh, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. With 40K wiring, I tend to adhere to a funny degree of normal wiring. And I'll do like a red wire, a blue wire. Oh, you actually do a black and a white, like a ground. Yeah, we'll do that. But when I do black for coloring, I don't do actually black. Whether it's painting or this, I'll do a really dark color. Usually a green-blue. And like in painting, I try to do one color at a time so I don't have to switch back and forth. And then we'll do a white. I'll make that one the white. I'll make that one the white. And you say, Dax, how do we tell if you colored it all the way since white matches the white? And I say, you can't until you test it. Then we need red. More red. More red. There we go. And you say, Dax, if your memory is shit, how do you remember which one was white? And I'll say, well, most of the time, it's going to be the one next to the ground. Most of the time. So, we have one instance where that's not the case. That would be the pad picking up my hand. That's probably a little too blue, if I'm honest, but oh well. All right, cannot tell the difference between his fingernails and his skin tone. That's okay, we can fix that. We'll just focus on that next. Is that everything colored though? I think that's everything colored, yeah. So now we can test the white. That's what I was talking about. I did get it all, but I got too much. Oh no, not bad. All right, and then the nails. So that's the select color. So this little, I guess you can't see what I'm pointing to. What am I on? Okay. This little square right there, that's your select color. So if we hit that, it'll give us that target symbol, and bing, we target the nail. We go to the nail, and it's too similar is what it is. So we'll select, and then we'll lighten it just a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. We'll do a little darker is what we'll do. And a little greener. Actually, let's do that. And then we'll create a new layer. We're going to click on this layer. We're going to hit clipping mask. And what clipping mask is going to do is it's only going to affect the layer underneath it. And we'll make this a little more dirty, like that. And then we'll get airbrush. It's going to have to be a small one. And then we'll just do this. Why is it getting... Oh, because I was on the wrong layer. You also have to make sure you select the right layer. You see what I'm doing there? Yeah, that's cool. That looks much better. And we're going to end up using this technique with a lot of shit. Like the bone on the skin, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that down, merge down. Like the bone on the skin, we're going to do that same thing with, so clipping mask. And then we need a good bone color. Right around there. Because we want it to look like the bone is coming through. And don't worry, we're not keeping the whole thing that color. That's just where we're starting. And honestly, there's a couple of ways to do this as well. This is not the only way to do this. And then bleached bone. Yeah. Oh, I forgot I wanted to put like liver spots and stuff on his skin. Don't let me forget that. Okay. So we're going to keep that up there. We're going to add another one. And it's automatically, since I'm adding it underneath the other clipping layer, it's going to automatically add the clipping to it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make this skin a little gangrenous. Blotchy's not a bad idea. So we're going to look at a bunch of different brushes. Blotchy calligraphy is not a bad idea, honestly, but you've got all sorts of things at your disposal in Procreate without purchasing any other brushes. Like Martin Abel, the artist. If you know who Martin Abel is, if you don't, he's really, really good, and you should look him up. Great guy. But he makes his own brushes and sells them, and they're pretty good. So you can look at those too. I use charcoals a lot. Honestly, these are probably a little too much, but we can try one. And yes, you see right, they do have a zombie skin. We could use that. It's just really funky, you see? A lot of times when I want a good leather, I'll use zombie skin there, but for what I'm doing right now, I don't think I want zombie skin. Let's try tawny. Where's tawny? I'm thinking we're going to use tawny for this. Yeah, that's probably what we're going to use. So, you may want to turn your opacity down for this. Oh, let's turn it up a little bit. Turn the opacity down though. And just hit areas. It's super sensitive. And then, yes, this is kind of cheating, but I'll show you an alternative to doing it this way as well. This is just the speedy version if you know how to do it. And when you're doing, that's something to actually think about when you're doing art for a living. So if someone is not paying you for detail, then you have to keep that at the forefront of your mind. If you're doing a $60 piece of work, then you're not going to put much detail and time into it. So you shouldn't feel bad about using all the tools at your disposal. If someone's paying you $1,000 for a pinup, you probably want to give them their money's worth. And then you can turn it up a little bit in spots. A little more. So like if someone was paying me $400 for this, then I'd probably just, do the hand version. Don't necessarily need to save as much time. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We like that. What do you think? Throw one more color in there? I think we need like a purple, don't you? What's a good purple to throw in there? Let's get a fleshy purple. Yeah. Yeah. Just in spots. Like bruising. Definitely need some of that around here, huh? Where his head used to be. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. And here's the way you don't feel bad about that. So, if you're a sketchist, if you're using a pencil, and let's get a different layer so I can just erase it. If you're a sketchist, then you know that the way to get kind of that look is to use the flat part of the lead, right? Well, you can actually use that same technique with the Apple Pencil. Hold it sideways, and oh, look at that. It's just like a pencil. And it's also pressure sensitive, right? So what you could do is you could, if you were using normal medium, you do that, and then get your eraser. Do something like that, right? Jig jag it every once in a while so it looks like, real thing. Strengthen some of the, enforce the lines a little bit in places. Is that starting to look like anything? So if you know what you're doing, you can do it the long way or the short way. And you shouldn't feel bad for doing it the short way if you're not getting paid to do it the long way. But people also, you have to keep in mind, pay digital artists to be digital artists. So you might get a lot of flack from people who are conventional medium artists, but they also need to realize that you're still using the tools at your disposal. If you're getting paid for a 10-hour piece of art, so let's say you're getting paid for 10 hours of work. If you're getting paid for 10 hours of work and you do 10 hours of work, then you might just be doing it a different way than someone else who's doing 10 hours of work. That's kind of my point. Um, in addition, depending on the medium, you've got your own corners that are being cut. Like I talked about in the prior video, I mean, it's not like most artists make their paintbrushes and their paints. You know, they don't gather their ash and their plants and make their paints themselves. They're not gathering camel or horsehair and making their brushes. They're, getting these tools from someone else who makes these tools. So from the same standpoint, they're cheating as well. So don't feel too bad about that shit, um, especially if you're honest with your patrons. But they need to realize that depending on the medium, that medium also has corners that they cut. Like acrylic painting, it's incredibly quick to make landscape with acrylic painting. Anybody who's watched Bob Ross can tell you that, right? What does he do? He does like in this 2 hour video, he'd have a completely landscaped canvas in a 2 hour painting video with happy little trees because it's easier to cut that corner with painting. And a lot of times when I'm doing landscaping in my digital art, if I'm doing landscaping on Procreate, and I'm sure I'll do some of them before too long, when I'm doing landscaping on Procreate, I'll actually use the acrylic brush tools, the brushes, the digital brushes. I'll use the acrylic painting, and it's just super fast because, and it's the same way if you look at Warhammer 40K's artwork. If you look at their codexes, their standard artwork, you've got the backgrounds that look epic, but you can make an epic looking background with acrylic paints pretty quickly. Um, and I keep saying acrylic paints because I suck at watercolors and oils. Watercolors and oils are kind of backwards from the other stuff that I do, so I suck at them. If I were to stick with them for 4 years, I mean, of course, I'd be better at them. Um, and that's not to say that doing the stuff I do wouldn't help me be better than the average person at them. But someone who's been doing oils for 4 years, they're going to be a lot better than me. That's what I'm saying. Uh, but most of the time, if you're doing landscapes with acrylics, they can be really fast, and that red is really bright. We should probably oil down his garb also, since it's bloodstained. We'll do that while I'm talking. So anyway, my point is just don't feel bad about that shit. Um, End of the day, you don't have anybody to please but yourself, right? If you're doing this for a living, that's not true. Not true at all. But you still get my point. We're going to be wrapping this up here in a minute. I think once we do his robe, we'll wrap this one up, and then we'll do the metals. Oh, metals are part of the skin, too. Don't have time for both. We'll do the robes right quick. We'll bloody these robes. And then we'll call it. And then we'll do a third part to close it out with the metals, lighting, and shading. Oh, no. Where is it? Textures? Oh, goodness. I can never find this thing when I want it. Blotchy. Okay. It's too round. So you can fix that by going in here and then playing with the settings. But as you can see, they only get to a certain point. So this is just what that's saying is this is just not the one that I want. There is another oil texture that's pretty good for blood. Just have to find it. I honestly thought it was up there. Blackwood's not bad, but it's not bloody enough. I always think it's in here, but it's not. Oh, there we go. That's the one. All right. It's so small, that's why. Okay. There we go. As you can see, it's too oily, but we can play with that. And we'll have to do this for the trim too. So a quick way to do it for the trim too is we just duplicate and that and that. Look at that. But before we do that, let's see if we can make that color a little closer to what we want. So we'll go to hue, saturation, and brightness, and then play with it until we get the color we want. It's probably going to be around here. Right around there. Yeah. That's pretty much what we want. Okay. Drag it up. Clip it. Now, you also want to do some splatter. Now, there are splatter brushes, but they're pretty, I'm going to use the word redundant. And splatter is kind of fun. So I recommend just get a good ink pen. Maybe, yeah, we'll do Inca. And then have fun with it. So, like that. And then we can put, if you want, you can put like gore on it. Chunks and shit. Oh, it got really big all of a sudden, didn't it? Now, when fluid splatters, it doesn't all just go like, oh, it's a straight line. It's not how fluid works. So a lot of being an artist is researching new shit. You're going to end up finding a lot of things out that you never thought about before. So one of the things is fluids. They will do this. They will make little arches. And then when the arch hits, it may splatter. So you're going to have little splatters in other places as well. That's not even counting the chunks, which we may do later. I don't know why I like splatter so much. It's because I'm a sociopath, I guess. Oh, and sometimes Procreate just shuts down on its own. Hopefully it doesn't do that when you've got something that you want to fix with like an undo. I really think it's just a RAM thing. You get too much that then your pad can handle at a time. Yeah, I dig it. And then you can do this for the tatters too. Let's turn it up a little bit. Yeah. The thing about the inks is you have to press pretty hard, so may not be the best tool for the tatters, but again, you can play with these things. It's not bad. I kind of like it. We may start with this and then yeah, I'll show you one cool little thing and we'll call it. So we'll go ahead and do this, but then I want to modify it. And I know it's getting really junctified down here, but you don't have to worry about that shit. Oh, and you can color right over the skin. Look at that. That's the cool thing about the clipping mask. So it's not, since the skin is a completely different layer, you can color right over the skin and it's not going to care. Clipping mask is your friend. Okay. So now that we've done all that, what you can do, let me put a little more. You can get the select tool. We're going to select this. Now we're only selecting what's in that circle on this layer. And then we can play with it. We can, I don't know, I hit the wrong button. If you hit the right button, you can play with it. So we can Gaussian blur, so we can blur it. See there? We can blur it, probably just blur it a little bit, like a 2 maybe. I think that's going to end up being a 2. Man, even 2 is strong. It's because it's so small. We'll do an almost 2. Right there. And then with that selected, you could also just go back to damn it, I forgot again, didn't I? So materials, Tawny. So you could go back to Tawny and then do it like that. I think Tawny is what we use for the skin, but honestly, it's looking kind of cool for this. It really depends on what material you pick for the, man, yeah, we should have used this for the stuff up there. It really depends on what materials you use for the cloth. Tawny's kind of a leathery, but with that oil, it still looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. But we'll go ahead and we'll give it a, just to get rid of some of those cracks. We'll go ahead and give it a 1. Yeah, that looks really good. All right, and then get rid of those selects, and that looks really good, but you've got some trim in there, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and duplicate it and pull it up to the trim also. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Good job, guys. And you can also change the opacity if you want. So if it's too strong on the trim, let's say the trim is like a pleather, right? So you can bring down the opacity a bit. Let's put it like there, so that you know the trim is more resistant than the cloth. Yeah, not bad, not bad. So next time we'll do it again tomorrow. Finish it up tomorrow. I don't see any reason why we won't finish it up tomorrow, because lighting's pretty quick. So we got to do the eyes. We got to do the metal, then we got to do the lighting and shading, and that is it. We got our five. We got my five authors. If you haven't read any of them, of course, make it a point to read some of them. Like I said, I can't guarantee you're going to like Homer. The odds are probably that you won't like Homer. Um, Researching Lovecraft, you'll see a lot about him being racist, but again, I don't think he's racist. I think he is xenophobic because of some stuff that happened when he was a kid. Dan Abnett, comic writer as well, comic author as well as novel author. He does a lot of 40K work. He's Fabu, even though he pisses me off sometimes. Um, Chris Claremont, comic writer, responsible for probably the best X-Men characters and stories of all time. Anne Rice goes without explanation. The new shows, I know that they're doing really well, but they're nothing like the books. So I say read the books. People just don't stick to the creators like they should. But that's it for me. Hope you learned something. Feel free to leave comments with requests for stuff for